somebody's going to be talking to you about the cookie sales program and how you're going to do it and all that. My role tonight is just to show you, God bless you, is to show you kind of the way that I do it. Not always the way that everybody's classically trained, but I've done over 15,000 sugar cookies over the last 12 years. And I mostly do it for a hobby. Once in a while I get paid for it, but mostly a hobby. And so I've just found a way that's super simple. May not be the most sophisticated way, but the idea is to keep it simple for you guys. So you just get a nice clean looking cookie, okay? So, and I also want to remind you and your moms that when you guys get to the point where you're at home, decorating your cookies, making your icing, making your dough, if anybody has a cookie emergency, YWOV, RTwelve has my phone number. You can all call me on the cell or text me with your cookie emergency. Don't worry. Every year I get one or two, and it's usually, my icing's too thick, do I need to throw it out? No, never throw it out. Add a few more drops of water and you'll be fine. So let's just get started. So the first thing I'd just like to tell you is in the recipe, which is my recipe, whatever time it says to bake it, I go a little bit less because all ovens are different. Some ovens cook a little too much. So if you see the back of this cookie, that's about what I like them to look like. Like there's just a tiny bit of caramel color, but it's not dark brown. If it's dark brown for my liking, it becomes a super crunchy cookie, which isn't my first choice. I love a cookie that melts in your mouth. So that's kind of the color you're going for. So in my oven, that's 6 minutes. Look at them. They need another minute, maybe another minute, so that's what I do. And then the icing, I've just done some examples for you. You can do whatever you want. I highly recommend against using red. Red food coloring is really hard to work with. I highly recommend different colors of pink. You can start out with super light, then do another, you can just do all one bowl of icing and do maybe half your cookies in light and then add more color to it if you want some brighter pink. And sanding sugars, you can get all your supplies that you need at Michael's, Sur La Table. You can order them online. Usually they come in containers like that, or if you're buying bigger ones, sometimes look like, I buy big quantities online, but you can do it however you want, and you can be using plastic knives. I use something like this. It's totally up to you. Some people prefer to do it in a squeeze bottle, but I'm not showing you that method. It takes a little bit more practice to get that, so that's why I'm just recommending doing this. So whatever device you're using, just use the back of it. So that's what I do. So I'm just going to show you how I do it, and then you guys are just going to try it so you can get the feel of it, and you can leave it in here, and then you can take it home or eat it with you on your way out. So what I do is I just take a little bit of icing, not too much, and I just start out kind of in the middle and then work my way out. And then you can kind of see about how that consistency is? So it doesn't just completely drip all over the place. If it drips all over the place, it's not the end of the world. It's just going to make for a messy cookie. If you get drips down the side, just take your finger and catch it right away before it dries, and you should be totally fine. And then I just go out. Now, I do it a lot faster than you'll be able to because I've just had a lot of practice. So, but I bet you $1 that your first couple dozen cookies, you'll be really slow. By your 4th or 5th dozen, it's gonna really click, and it'll be.
Would there been
Well, you know why I'm telling you that? The reason why I'm telling you. Okay, so that's kind of the look that you want.
I want to make the
Okay, so see how it's not so thick that it's running down the sides, but it's thick enough that you don't see the cookie very much through it. That's kind of what I do. And normally what you're doing is you're doing it like on, I'm sorry you guys can't see over there, like on a rack, something like that. If you don't have one of those, just use whatever you have. I like to use a plastic tablecloth whenever I work because it makes it super easy to just roll it in the middle and throw it out. Because when you start seeing the sanding sugar, you're going to see that it gets messy. So what I do at home is I do about 6 to 12 cookies with the icing before I touch the sanding sugar. And the reason I do that is if you dip the sanding sugar while the icing is super wet, it kind of sinks in and it almost looks like pebbles. It doesn't really have that really pretty look. So if you see these, well actually I don't need to do that, I can show you this. So if you see these, you see how the sugars, you can really see the sparkle in there? The reason you can see the sparkle pretty well is it sits up pretty high on the icing. If it sinks down, you don't see the sparkle, it looks like pebbles. Again, nothing's the end of the world if you don't do it right. I'm just telling you my way so you can get the best looking cookie you can. So then after you do that, then what I would suggest is, I'm gonna borrow whoever's plate this is just for a minute. Is I use at home, I use a big paper plate, but we don't have the room to use a big one here, so using little ones. You know what, you guys can't see over that, so, thank you so much. So I just go right over there, it's pretty easy, right? You can hold it if you want, if you think you can do it without getting fingerprints on your cookies. I think it's risky, so I personally prefer to do it over here, and then I put my paper plate under the rack and I just kind of scoot it around, and I really don't like to touch them until they're dry, because I can just tell you, unless you're really, really good at it, it's really hard to pick that up without like dinging the end of it, and it's just not gonna look as good. So what I typically do is my dried cookies are on a rack like this, any kind of rack that you have, and I ice them over that, put it down, then come back, put the paper plate underneath it, and then you can recapture this, right? You don't need to waste this. You can recapture this and put that back in there, and that's totally fine. There's nothing unsanitary about doing that. That's totally good. Speaking of sanitary, especially this time of year with the flu, but always when handling food, is I recommend that you put your phone in the other room, because the temptation is so great. It's the dirtiest thing that you ever carry is your phone with the most germs. Wash your hands, pull your hair back. I didn't do it tonight. And like if I do this, because you know, like you'll get itchy scalp because it's dry or something. Anytime I do that, if I'm handling food, straight to go wash my hands. So I just like to remind you to do that. If one falls on the ground, you can eat it or give it to your family. Do not put it in the stuff that's going to go for food. And I think that's pretty much it. You're going to get instructions. You may already have them. I don't know how you guys are doing that, but you're going to get instructions that I made a few years ago with a team of people that we did the pictures and the instructions, and it tells you really step by step, and it's super easy and very self-explanatory. But I just thought it'd be nice for you to just at least get a feel for it and see what it looks like, see what it feels like. So go ahead and give one a try, and then just do your